Live from the Los Angeles Country Club, this is On the Links with your hosts Trent Rush and Nico Bellini.
Boy, excited to be here at the Los Angeles Country Club today. Particularly excited about our guest right now here on the Links, Geoff Shackelford. Not only a great historian of the game, nobody knows Southern California golf better than Geoff Shackelford. Also, one of the designers here, part of the redesign here at the Los Angeles Country Club. Geoff, first of all, thank you for joining us. Secondly, this has to be pretty exciting for you to have a golf course that you were a part of setting up, making, and now here it is hosting a U.S. Open. This is a pretty incredible day, I would think, for you.
Part very exciting, part a little nerve-wracking because, as you know, these guys go around the world. They play a lot of courses. Not many of them know this very well, and it's set up very tough, and there are a lot of elements. So I'm anxious to see what they have to say. You know, there's some things that are pretty extreme, and you know, I painted every little line on the bunkers, and so I'm watching, you know, just to see how they function, you know, little stuff like that, and just how the guys attack some of the holes. So I'm confident, though, they're going to love it. There may be a few things they may not like. The gate, which is very typical, as you know, with tour players.
So one of the unique – so last year I played the Thomas, right? And Jason Gore, and I think you may have been out there, but there was a handful of staff from the USGA in L.A., and 15 was one of the holes they were watching us play. So they had the tees up at about 75 to 80 yards with that pin and that front right finger.
Yeah. Yep.
And, right, the anxiety it caused, because I think all those guys want to see how we dealt with it. Again, we're not tour players, but we're good amateur players, and we can hit decent wedge shots, and how we'd play it. So is your intent, A, are they going to play that from about 75 yards one of the days?
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
It was such a standout moment of the Walker Cup here in 2017. Yeah. They used it on Saturday afternoon, and the only person who bogeyed it was Stuart Hagestad, the member here on the team. Will Zalatoris made one of the coolest up and downs you've ever seen. A couple guys almost made hole-in-one, hit it a few inches. I mean, it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. It was just a because you just don't know, and you don't know how it's going to react, if it's going to work. Now, it is a little scarier. Obviously, a U.S. Open, everybody walks on the green there, and it's a full field. The Walker Cup, there aren't a lot of people, so there's little stuff like that.
It could change.
You have to be nervous and watch the weather. But on the weekend, I think they'll play it at that. It'll be the shortest hole ever played in a major championship.
And what's great about that shot is that when I was sitting there looking at it, the guys in front of me, one was in that front bunker, because you have to be so precise with that shot. Yeah. If you hit it just short, it hits the front lip and kicks it down almost kind of to the back of the front bunker, or if you just clear it, one hops to the back. So you got to land it in the perfect spot. I went a little long left, and you can kind of get that little side spin that guys can do.
And that's the shot.
And it gave me 25 feet straight down the hill, fast putt, but that's a shot, because the last thing you want to do is walk out of the double from 75 yards.
And the neatest thing we ever saw there actually was in the Pac-12s here. Yeah. Casey Martin of Oregon was the coach, and he was actually coaching. He was going out on the greens and telling his guys, waving them where to play the ball, and they'd spin it down.
Wow.
And it was it was an actual college golf coach coaching.
Yeah. So is the course right now set up kind of the way you envision it, as far as like firm, fast, length, everything? Is that kind of what you envision? And is it being set up that way? Because I know the USGA controls most of the setup of the golf course.
They do. They do everything. It's close.
Do they consult with you at all?
Oh, yeah. I spent 6 hours with them on Friday and looked at all the hole locations. And they're still fine-tuning, again, because there isn't much data here or much information. They're going to watch a lot of the golf.
Yeah.
So they may change some things. Our weather this spring has maybe made some things not happen that we would have thought, and some other things happen that we would not have expected. You know, it's very green and lush, and that's from our rain and then the June gloom. And so then that also means, because we have all these different grasses, we have Bermuda grass, and it just does not really thrive until it gets some heat. And so you'll see there's rough and it's brutal in spots. And then there's other spots where there's Bermuda, and the guys will have almost like a fairway lie. It's kind of beaten down from traffic and that kind of thing.
I was going to ask about that. Fast on this golf course, and we haven't really had – the weather just has not permitted that. So you guys still happy with how it looks right now and how it's going to play?
Yes. Yeah. It's dry. So it looks green, but it's not like the ball's going to land and stop. Yeah. So it's very dry, but you may not see the ball running – quite like we want it, and there are a few holes where you get a little nervous because you don't want it running to where a guy hits a great drive and doesn't stay in the fairway. So it's a really tricky thing, but they've given themselves room. It's wide enough, and I think the thing that I love most about it, again, we'll see, But my hunch is that if you're playing well, no matter how you play the game, how you move the ball, not many guys move the ball anymore, but it just doesn't matter. If you're playing well, I think you're going to be rewarded here, and you're going to have a great week, and that's what you want. You don't want to have too strong of a bias. That said, if you can hit a 340-yard high draw, you're really going to be happy with some tee shots here, and I'm sure you can attest to that.
I think hole 18 is kind of one of the more not under-revered, but the shift in the fairway from the Thomas to last year. So before 18 was kind of like you just didn't think about it. You just bombed a driver up there. Yeah. Now they've shifted the fairway all the way to the right from that back tee. Again, this is a year ago.
Well, yeah.
And they brought the hazard, the Barenka,
correct,
to the right of 17. All of a sudden, I'm thinking about that.
Well,
I never thought about that before.
So what happened was the fairway is now 56 yards wide.
Oh.
They got a lot of feedback that it wasn't right. Let's just call it that. And really strong feedback. I'm like, Adam Scott bent my ear at Riviera. I kept wanting to hear about other holes. He would not get off the 18th hole, and he's one of the nicest people you've ever met. I've never seen him he just wouldn't let it go. So they heard that feedback and they widened it back out. So it's going to be the widest landing area on an 18th hole in the U.S. Open you've ever seen.
Was the feedback that it was too narrow or
it was
too
a little
pushed
goofy?
Over?
It felt, you know what it was? It felt forced. We were there when they did it. We went along with it because if you hug the right side, it's a better angle of the green,
100%.
Especially when they're going to be like the U.S. Open greens. But so the USGA, they've been through a lot with course setup. They've had some problems, and they're really trying in these last few years. Maybe they've been a little more cautious, but they're trying to rebuild their image, their trust with the players. And the view was the feedback is overwhelming. They hate it. And we weren't thrilled about it, and so we didn't hate it, but it's better. It will be, the finish will be. It's a very hard hole. If we get a little afternoon breeze, and we're supposed to get who knows? But we're supposed to get a good sea breeze Sunday evening, and they're going to be playing late. And it's 492. It's all the hole you need. Uphill. So it's 43 feet uphill.
Uphill into the sun.
Into the sun, which is tricky, too.
Yeah, sure.
And if the sun's out, I mean, that, and that's the other thing. I mean, just watch. You're going to see really good scoring when we have the marine layer and the June gloom. The guys they don't have shadows. They see well. But, that afternoon sun, pressure of the U.S. Open, it will play plenty hard. And, by the way, maybe if somebody birdies it, that's not the end of the world either.
What would be so wrong with that?
That'd be kind of cool.
Jeff, when you and Gil did the redesign, talking to Gil Hance, 08, 09 is about the time when a lot of that was happening. I know that you, being the history buff you are, go back and look so much at what George C. Thomas was trying to do here and how much the course changed in that time. What's the balance like of trying to bring it back to the heyday, to the Thomas design, compared to trying to also keep the golf course modern with the modern player in mind, knowing you want to have a U.S. Open here at some point? What's that balance like?
Well, it's a great question. By the way, they never mentioned a U.S. Open at all, interestingly.
Yeah.
And so it was quite a surprise when that happened because but that wasn't part of the discussion. But when we did it, we were thinking there were things you had to modernize, and the analogy we like is we try to think of it like restoring an old car, but under the hood. In this case, maybe we made it an electric, or and we've got a new screen on the inside. But the exterior looks like a '65 Mustang still.
Okay,
and we want it to look old. It's an old club. Why would you want to make it look new? And there were 2 fairway bunkers. We've moved one of them again for the U.S. Open. Number 2, we moved it about 35 yards, and then we moved it. We basically flipped it another 15 on the left because the guys hit it longer. And just since we did the work, and we made one big leap on the 8th hole as a reachable par 5. And George Thomas, for whatever reason, didn't have anything too difficult next to the green, and we just said, look, the game has changed. We're making the hole shorter, and it's a reachable. We want to be a more dramatic par 5. It was really, and it took a little while, but they came around to that. And then everything else is really off the photos, and then the bunker style's based on his style. But again, we did some things to make them look like old, evolved bunkers. And I think that it really paid off because the course reopened, and that was sort of the reaction. People said, it looks like it's been here forever. And that's what you want at an old place.
And what you've done really well, and I enjoy about the golf course now, is that you have all these fingers on a lot of the greens. So I was talking to John earlier about our guys going to change wedge setups. So, for example, hole 5, you have that front right finger.
Yeah.
You have hole 7, the back right finger. And then throughout the golf course, you have little, and then, of course, 15, front right. 6 is the one hole where I still don't quite know how to play it. Because when the pin's left,
I love hearing that.
when the pin's left,
Yeah.
I'm going to lay up. And I was like, it's a tough wedge shot because it's such a narrow shelf. But it's not an easy drive. Ideally, you want to hit 3-wood. It's not very long, but 3-wood at the front right part of the green. But if the pin's back left, if you're off a little bit, you're in the Barranca, and then you cut off your angle to that back finger. So there's no, you got to hit.
The further left you go, the more extreme it gets.
Yeah, you have to sort of hit the perfect 3-wood long iron driver shot into that hole when the pin's left. The pin's right, there's more room to just kind of lay up, hit a wedge. It's still a tight green with that back bunker with the kind of shaved edge on the back edge. But the back left area is, boy, that's not an easy wedge shot from 80 yards. You almost want to be further back, kind of similar to 15, to generate spin on the ball, to be able to kind of one-hop stop it because it's so precise. But how do you think guys, what do you do? You're playing the Open, the pin's back left. You're going to...
Yeah, I think it is hole location dependent. It's where you are in the tournament.
Yeah.
And even when you do lay up, it's again where you are, what you're trying to do. It's going to be a hole where I think you might have a game plan, but I think you do need to, in that last day at least, or if you're trying to make the cut on Friday, be aware of where you are, which I think is interesting in itself. Because a lot of the guys don't like to do that. They just play the hole, and now they're so data driven and team driven.
Yeah.
But this one they have no data, and nobody knows how to play it. So I've been watching it. It's going to be a blast. It's one of the featured holes. I just don't know what to tell you what they're going to do, but my sense is you will see everything, and that's what we love. There's just different dimensions to it, and that's what you want in a hole. I wish it was about 15 yards longer. I think it would be even more thrilling, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm thrilled they made it one of the featured holes. So if you want to watch on one of the live feeds, it's going to be like Tenerife. Something interesting is going to happen in every group when they play it.
And I've done something different every time. Once I kind of think I know how to play it, because the thing about too is you said this is the unknown rules or the unknown thoughts and anxieties players have. So on 6, when you're sitting there 75 yards, all you're thinking is don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. And I think that just changes versus if you're hitting a 5-iron or 4-iron and an 18.
Right.
It's like, whatever, if I miss it, not a big deal. I'm just trying to make 4. But there, you're just hoping not to screw it up, and it's just more dramatic if you do screw it up.
Jeff, I've asked this question to some folks from the USGA, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts just as somebody that's got their fingerprints on this golf course. If you were a fan here coming out to watch the U.S. Open and you got to hang out in one spot on property to go watch golf, where would that spot be?
That's the hole.
Yeah.
It's a brutal spectator experience, first of all. So if you're coming to see the property, but in terms of like trying to follow a group, not possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Trying to sit in some spots is even hard. But there's some great grandstands where my advice to people is that's one where you have that hole, and then you have the next tee.
Yeah, the
so
17th
you get
shot,
a little 2-for-1 action, and the first green has one where you can see the 18th tee. So there are a few of those where I'm advising people to go to those, and you'll get a nice a mix of shots. And that one is definitely. I'll be sitting down there. I won't take up a seat if there's a paying customer, because I can go inside the ropes. Although the grandstand is very close to the action, so you may even get a couple of drives if somebody really pumps one out there. But that would be a spot. It's a little bit of a trek to get there, but I think it would be. You would have a very satisfying day of viewing.
Sure.
You're like I said, you're going to see a little bit of everything.
Jeff, seriously, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man these days, but congratulations on everything you've accomplished.
Thanks.
And this is going to be a fun week. Thank you.
It's going to be spectacular. Yeah, I can't wait.